darkness, absolute nothingness. In the void, there is no thought, no fear, no hate, no despair, no joy, no companionship, and no serenity. No sense of individuality, no identity. Suddenly realizing that having these very thoughts occur in the moment of perceiving them. Now, suddenly aware of having words to describe these emotions that weren't even in any level of awareness before. But a feeling of having been here before, of being ancient, thus indicating the very concept of time now existing. Seeing absolutely nothing and feeling nothing, not a vestige of a sensation or sliver of emotion. And then, out of the corner of his cognitive awareness, he could sense another presence with him. He couldn't tell what it was. Another person, perhaps. Another consciousness here in this darkness with him. Almost as instantly as he had sensed the presence, he saw a bright flash of pure white light engulf his entire vision. A white ball at the center, and thin strands of light emanating all around it, expanding in a fraction of a second at the center of the darkness, and engulfing his entire perception. Waking up slowly with heavy eyelids sluggishly opening, and his vision steadily focusing from a blur. Beginning to turn his head after a long minute, he looks around the immediate area to get some semblance of familiarity. Everything looked alien, as if pieces of reality had molded together to form some sort of rough painting of the real thing. Memories steadily came flooding back to him within a few seconds, remembering that he is Dremog Crow, a red-skinned Sith pureblood in the Sith Empire who had recently been admitted to an academy that sifts through the weak to bring forth strong individuals who constantly shape the fate of the galaxy. Yes, he is strong, he is whole, he is alive. Swinging his legs over the side of the bed, he can now vividly identify everything in the room. From the sheets that he had thrown on the floor during the middle of the night, the 2 cups that were filled with a tonic and a strong alcoholic beverage sitting on top of the small rectangular table that was level with his bed 3 feet off the ground and 5 feet away. Catching something glimmer in his peripheral vision, he turns his head to the right and sees his 5-foot-long vibro glaive leaning against the wall right beside his bed. A large, formidable weapon that, when wielded properly, can cleave someone in 2 or slice even the tough armor of a Yozask beast. Looking ahead, he notices a rapidly flashing light on the computer terminal in front of him. It being merely 2 steps away, he motioned to press the flashing button that indicated someone had left a message for him. But before he could even take his first step to go to the terminal, he's startled by a loud knocking on his door. Turning to the metal door that separated him and whoever was knocking so fiercely against the metal surface, then turning back to the terminal to see what time it exactly was right now. Squinting his eyes, he can just barely make out that it is 10 past 0700. A relatively early time in the planet's rotation for most beings to wake up. But for an acolyte at the Sith Academy, where your very survival depends on your tenacity to acquire power quickly before you abruptly fall behind or succumb to a gruesome fate at either the hands of the other acolytes, the relentless creatures in the forest, or even the masters themselves, there was no rest, no peace, only raw ambition. Interrupted with another loud series of knocks at his door, he relents in exacerbated frustration, becoming swept up in the moment to start briskly walking towards the blast door to see who was behind it. Opening it by pressing one button that is resting on the wall right beside it. Half expecting one of the other acolytes that had threatened to duel him in one of the sparring arenas yesterday, or even one of the Sith Masters. He is somewhat surprised to see an Imperial officer standing tall at the foot of the door outside his room. Having a badge on the right breast that has colored squares stacked vertically to indicate his rank within the government or military, 3 blue and 2 red. Not knowing exactly what rank that is within the Empire, he didn't bother trying to assume since he never took the time to learn anything involving the military just yet. wanting to focus solely on the mysteries that can be uncovered at the Academy, reaching for greater power so as to not be undermined by anyone who could be ahead of him already. With an escort of 4 troopers right behind this officer standing before him, Prologue knew this must be a serious matter. Bewildered what they could want with him since he had only just arrived here 3 days ago, hardly enough time for him to cause any manner of trouble. Silence permeating the air for a long moment, the officer looks to be inspecting the young acolyte with a calculating eye. Then pressing a few buttons on the touch screen of a datapad he is holding towards himself with one hand. He begins to ask, whilst not even looking at him and seemingly browsing something on the datapad.
Are you Master Prologue Crow?
The young pureblood begins to reply but stops himself before uttering a single vowel when recognizing he was referred to as a master instead of as an acolyte. Set beside himself with a tinge of pride, he is still somewhat weary of being truthful with his identity, lest this be something negative. Briefly recalling if he had made any serious enemies recently, Prologue is satisfied in knowing for a fact there isn't anyone aside from a few acolytes who wanted to test the new blood in the Academy.
Yes, I am Prologue Crow. May I ask what this is about?
Well, sir, you are to accompany me to Lord Syath's estate, for you to begin your training as an apprentice directly under him.
A Sith apprentice, already. He had just arrived at the Academy just a few days ago, and now he is suddenly being picked out to be an apprentice. This didn't make any bit of sense. Yes, he is a pureblood, one of the 2 races within the Empire that hold nobility and status within its societal structure. And being naturally gifted with the mysterious power of the Force, a mystical energy that is directly tied to all living things in the universe, he is undoubtedly special. But he couldn't help but wonder why he was specifically being singled out, especially so early. Usually it's a tradition for all who are admitted to the Academy to survive its grueling trials, which few ever do. But he couldn't help but wonder why he was specifically being singled out, especially so early. Usually it's a tradition for all who are admitted to the Academy to survive its grueling trials, which few ever do. Being apprehensive to go with the mysterious officer who is patiently waiting with a posh attitude that most people who have when elevated to a high status, a moment of doubt passes, trying to see what the best course of actions could be. Subsequently, he started to feel absolute clarity, a feeling of definitive assurance that everything is going to be all right, as if something was guiding him, protecting him, and from time to time empowering him with some sort of hidden strength he didn't fully understand. At times he wondered if he was just lucky, that maybe he simply got away by the skin of his teeth. But growing up within the upper class of the Empire, he knew that all his luck or supernatural strength was attributed to the power of the Force flowing within him. A power that only a few rare individuals possess. Something that is mystical and unexplainable to the majority of sentience in the galaxy. But for those who delve into its mysteries, can go on to rule a city, a country, a world, and even the entire galaxy. The Sith Emperor was proof of this. A being who attained the highest level of power that anyone has ever seen before, so powerful that no one dares to challenge his rule. Or at least if you're sane enough to not attempt a coup against such an unstoppable force of nature. His undeniable power to sit on top of so many greedy and dangerous people for over 1,000 years is the evidence that substantiates the fact that might makes right. Only the threat of something greater than themselves will people ever fall in line to obedience, rather than the constant chaos of disorder, the power of fear to keep them in check. Determined to see where this goes, Prologue goes on to comply with the Imperial officer before him and says something to test whether or not this is genuine or a trick. Since, despite his intuition telling him this is safe, he isn't quite reliant on his feelings, since they offer nothing more than vague understandings on things he perceived as being out of his control. For now.
Let me get a few of my things, and then we can go.
Judging by their reactions, he can tell they weren't in any real rush to usher him away, which more or less alludes to the fact of all this being real and definitely not being in any sort of actual danger. Going back into the room, he picks up his comlink, his vibroglaive, and a wallet containing all his loose credits and the credit chips that are linked to an account with a small fortune he inherited after his family was killed nearly 10 years ago. An incident he hardly thinks about. He didn't really have any emotional attachments to his progenitors. No real anger or resentment in their deaths. As if he didn't care about their existence at all, like they were just another story he read on the news of someone else's family being killed. He did, however, mind that the majority of his inheritance was taken after his parents failed miserably in a Kagath against another Sith Lord. A Kagath being an ancient practice that pits one Sith against another, a challenge that only ends when the other is dead. Using all their resources, from their vast armies to their network of spies and allies, to go to war. And by right, the victor can declare the remaining riches after the carnage of countless battles and the dead littering dozens of worlds will be theirs for the taking. On top of having the option to strip the family name of the defeated house from galactic records for further humiliation. After gathering all his belongings, he goes off with the military escort and not even bothering to check the message that was left for him.
I'm done with this place,
he thought to himself coldly. Why bother go through the trials at all when fate is handing you a silver platter to skip ahead of the line and train directly under a powerful Sith Lord? Any last shred of doubt or uncertainty is swept away, and he walks out of the academy with many eyes drawn to him in wonder. Some were snickering, others were impressed. No one exactly knew what was going on. But deep down, he knew that his destiny was only just now beginning.